Richard Blackwood had grown accustomed to the silence that filled his mansion, but the sound of laughter drifting down from the second floor made him pause, with his hand on his study door. At 43, Richard commanded a shipping empire that spanned 3 continents, but the grand estate that showcased his success felt more like a museum than a home. Since the accident 18 months ago that had changed everything, laughter had become a foreign sound in these halls, especially his 4-year-old daughter Isabella's laughter. The doctors had said Isabella might never walk again. The spinal injury from the car crash that had claimed his wife Elena's life had left their daughter with limited mobility in her legs. Since then, Isabella had retreated into a world of quiet resignation that broke Richard's heart daily, but now unmistakably, he could hear his daughter giggling. Richard set down his briefcase and climbed the marble staircase following the sound toward Isabella's playroom. What he saw when he reached the doorway made him freeze in complete astonishment. Anna Summers, the young woman he'd hired as household staff 3 months ago, was kneeling on the carpet beside Isabella's wheelchair. But Isabella wasn't in the chair. She was standing supported by small crutches, swaying gently to music from a small radio, while Anna moved gracefully around her. "See, Princess Isabella." Anna was saying, her voice warm with encouragement. "Dancing isn't just about your feet, it's about how the music makes you feel inside. Can you feel it in your heart?" Isabella, wearing a cream-colored dress with a purple bow in her curly dark hair, was beaming with pure joy as she moved her upper body to the rhythm. "I can feel it, Anna. I can feel the dancing in my heart." Anna, perhaps 25, with blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wore her simple blue uniform with an elegance that spoke of someone comfortable in her own skin as she demonstrated gentle movements that Isabella could safely attempt. Richard saw something he hadn't witnessed in months. His daughter's face bright with happiness and accomplishment. "You're such a beautiful dancer," Anna said, steadying Isabella as the little girl attempted a small step with her crutches. "Your mama would be so proud of how brave and strong you are." Richard's breath caught. Anna was the first person who'd spoken naturally about Elena to Isabella, without the careful tiptoeing that everyone else employed around there. "Grief, do you think Mama can see me dancing?" Isabella asked, her 4-year-old voice serious despite her smile. "I think your mama sees everything you do," Anna replied gently. "And I think when she sees you dancing, her heart dances too," Richard felt, tears gathering in his eyes. The first tears that weren't born of grief that he'd shed in over a year. Here was his daughter who'd barely spoken above a whisper since the accident, laughing and moving and believing in herself again. As the song ended, Anna helped Isabella back into her wheelchair with practiced care. "You did so beautifully, Princess. Tomorrow we can try the twirling song if you'd like." "Yes." Isabella clapped her hands together. "Can we dance every day, Anna, please?" "Every single day," Anna promised, adjusting Isabella's blanket with tender attention. Richard cleared his throat softly, not wanting to startle them. Both Anna and Isabella looked up, and he saw a flash of concern cross Anna's face. "Papa," Isabella called out, her excitement undimmed. "Anna taught me to dance. I can dance even with my wheels. Come see." Richard entered the room, his heart full of emotions. He'd forgotten he could feel. "I heard music," he said simply, "and laughter." Anna stood quickly smoothing her uniform with nervous hands. "Mr. Blackwood, I hope it was all right." Isabella asked about the music, and I thought it might help with her physical therapy if we made it more fun. "More than all right," Richard said, his voice thick with gratitude. "Anna, could I speak with you privately for a moment?" As Anna followed him into the hallway, Richard struggled to find words for what he'd witnessed. Finally, he said, "How long have you been doing this with Isabella?" "About 2 weeks," Anna admitted. She mentioned that she used to love dancing with her mother and she seemed so sad about not being able to anymore. I have some background in physical therapy. I was studying to be a physical therapist before. She paused, then continued. Before, I had to leave school. I thought gentle movement might help her strength and mood. Richard studied Anna's face, seeing something he'd missed in his grief-focused tunnel vision. Why didn't you tell me about your background when I hired you, Anna's cheeks flushed? Because you needed household help, not a therapist. And honestly, I needed the job more than I needed to discuss my unfinished education. The honesty in her answer struck Richard deeply. Anna, what you've done for Isabella, I haven't. Heard her laugh like that since before the accident. I haven't seen her try so hard at anything physical since we brought her home from the hospital. She's an incredible little girl, Anna said simply. She just needed to remember that her body can still do beautiful things, even if they're different things than before. Over the following weeks, Richard found himself making excuses to be home during Anna's dance sessions with Isabella. He watched his daughter's confidence grow daily, saw her attempting small physical challenges she'd given up on months ago, witnessed the return of the spirited little girl who'd once filled their home with energy. More than that, he began to see Anna herself, not just as an employee, but as the remarkable young woman who'd brought light back into his daughter's world and quietly into his own. Tell me about your physical therapy studies. Richard said one evening after Isabella had gone to bed. Anna was tidying the playroom, and he'd offered to help Anna. Paused in her organizing. I was in my final year when my father had a heart attack. My family needed help with medical bills, so I left school to work. I always planned to go back, but... She shrugged with the resignation of someone accustomed to dreams, deferred by necessity. What if you didn't have to choose? Richard asked carefully. What if you could finish your degree and continue helping Isabella? Anna stared at him in confusion. Mr. Blackwood, I don't understand. Richard had been thinking about this for days. But now the words came easily. Isabella has made more progress in the past month than in all the previous therapy sessions combined. What if I sponsored your education and you became her private physical therapist? You could work. With her daily help, her continue building strength and confidence. That's incredibly generous, Anna said slowly. But I couldn't accept charity. It wouldn't be charity, Richard interrupted. It would be an investment in my daughter's future, Anna. You've given Isabella something no amount of money could buy. Hope you've shown her that her limitations don't define her possibilities. As Anna completed her degree over the following year with tuition paid and her position as Isabella's therapist secured, Richard watched both women in his life flourish. Isabella's physical improvements were remarkable, but her emotional healing was even more profound. She began speaking about her mother, naturally incorporating Elena's memory into her daily life rather than hiding from it. Anna proved to be not just a gifted therapist, but a natural teacher. She developed innovative techniques that helped Isabella and eventually other children with mobility challenges who came to their home for sessions. The relationship between Richard and Anna evolved, gradually built on shared devotion to Isabella's well-being and mutual respect for each other's character. When Richard finally acknowledged his feelings, it was during one of Isabella's dance recitals. Elaborate performances she'd begun staging in their living room. Anna, Richard said, as they watched Isabella demonstrate a routine she'd choreographed for her stuffed animals. I need to tell you something. Anna looked up from where she was applauding Isabella's performance. When I hired you, I was looking for someone to help manage the household. Richard continued. I never expected to find someone who would help heal my family, who would help heal me. Understanding dawned in Anna's eyes. Richard, I know. It's complicated, he said quickly. I know there are considerations about our professional relationship, about Isabella's needs, but Anna, You've become essential to both of us, not just as a therapist or employee, but as someone we love. The wedding took place in their garden 18 months later with Isabella serving as maid of honor. She walked down the aisle using her crutches, having insisted on practicing for weeks to surprise Anna with her progress. "You know what I love most about today?" Isabella whispered to Anna during the reception as she watched her father dance with his new wife. "What's that, sweetheart?" Anna asked, adjusting Isabella's flower crown. "Now we can all dance together every day," Isabella said with the satisfied wisdom of a 6-year-old who'd seen her greatest wish come true. Richard, holding Anna close as they swayed to their wedding song, looked over at Isabella, who was indeed dancing in her wheelchair, her arms moving gracefully to the music, her face radiant with joy. "Thank you," he whispered to Anna, "for teaching us both to dance again." Anna smiled up at him. "We taught each other, that's what families do." As the music played and laughter filled the air, Richard understood that the greatest treasures in life weren't the ones you could buy, but the ones that found you when you most needed them, bringing healing hope and the sound of joy back to places that had forgotten how to sing. Sometimes the most profound healing happens not through grand gestures, but through the daily choice to help someone remember the joy their heart still holds.